George Lucas recently made some comments at the Cannes Film Festival that people have a lot of issues with. One of the things about being a Star Wars fan for multiple decades is that you feel like you actually know George Lucas. But today we're going to look at a long list of contradictory statements that George Lucas has made over the past 40 years. The media and fans and other people are always going to take one side of the issue, and they're not going to look at the contradictory statements that the man has made. Has his opinion on things changed over time? Yes, but I think today's list is going to shock you. Thank you for being here at Echo Base Network. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We're live every Thursday night. Now, on to the list of George Lucas contradictory statements that he's made over the past 40 years. In 1997, George Lucas said, "The special edition is the definitive version of the film, not the one that was finished in 1977. The other one was just a rough cut. This is the final cut." But in 1977, George Lucas said, "My original idea was to shoot it as kind of a documentary in the style of a Saturday morning serial." So which one is it, George? Also in 1997, George Lucas said, "Special effects are just a tool, a means of telling a story. People have a tendency to confuse them as an end in themselves." 2 years later, in 1999, he said, "To me, the special effects are just tools. They're way down on the list of important things to me." But George Lucas is also on record saying, "The special effects in Star Wars are the most essential part of the movie. It's what the audience comes to see." In 2004, George Lucas said, "I'm not a big fan of altering my films. I like them the way they are." And at the time of the 1997 special edition release, he said, "I'm very aware of the fact that you can't go back and change things, but you know, there are certain things that bug me about the movie, and I thought, well, maybe I can change them." You like them the way they are, you want to go back and change them. Which one is it? In 1977, George said, "I'm a filmmaker. I'm not here to write scripts. I'm not here to be a producer. I'm here to make movies." 3 years later, in 1980, he said, "I'm a producer now. I'm trying to get other people to direct." Guess that's the impact of the original Star Wars movie. In 2005, after completing the prequel trilogy, George said, "I'm done with Star Wars. I'm moving on to other projects." In 2012, post the Disney acquisition of Star Wars, he said, "I'm still very much involved in Star Wars, just in a different way now." I see arguments all the time about who George made Star Wars for. Did he make it for kids? Is Star Wars a kid's movie or not? Well, here's the truth. In 1977, George said, "When I first did Star Wars, I was trying to make a film for young people. It's not a grown-up movie." In 2005, George said, "I make these movies for myself, and all the pressures I've had to be more adult, more sophisticated, more provocative, for a more general audience, I just haven't paid attention to those." So you made a film for young people, or you made a film for you? Which is it? In 2012, George said, "The movies are for children, but they bring out the child in all of us. People are still asking me if the movies were really made for kids, and I always say the same thing. Yes, they were." Well, he said that in 2012, but in 1988, he said, "I didn't make Star Wars for kids. I made it for me." In 2008, George said, "I always intended Star Wars to be a family-friendly series that parents could enjoy with their kids." In 2005, in a response to criticism about the prequel trilogy, George said, "I'm not doing these movies for kids. I'm doing them for you, the fans." In 1977, George said, "I made Star Wars for a younger audience. That's why it's full of youthful energy and adventure." But in 2004, he said, "I made these movies to be enjoyed by everyone of all ages. They're universal stories that everyone can relate to." And in 2005, George said, "I make movies for myself. If other people like them, that's great, but I make them for myself first." And in 2010, he said, "I've always said that I made Star Wars for the fans, because they're the ones who keep it alive." I love George Lucas. I appreciate everything that he did creating the original trilogy, even the Ewoks movies, okay? I love Star Wars. I've loved it since I was a kid, since I was 4 years old, and I always will. Now, a lot of us love the prequels. A lot of us, well, some of us love the sequels. I get it. But Star Wars was at its peak in the golden age during the original trilogy. But it's hard to argue after looking at all of these statements These are things that fans still fight about and argue about today online nearly every day. I mean, we're talking 365 days a year. People are arguing about who did George Lucas make Star Wars for. The man has been a walking contradiction for decades, and he continues to do that now. He basically says things out of both sides of his mouth. Maybe he's wanting to say things that people want to hear. Maybe he just feels both ways. It depends on what kind of mood he's in. I don't know what it is. I don't know why he does it, but it's hard to argue that George Lucas has said a lot of contradictory statements. What does that mean? Absolutely nothing. Thank you, George, for creating Star Wars. We appreciate it very much. I wish you still had it and you didn't sell it to Disney and when we're in the shape that we're in right now, but it is what it is. Thank you for being here, guys. Please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. We appreciate it very much. We are You Are Echo Base Network. May the Force be with you. See you on the next one.